Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to the Great Lakes Health Radio program here on Power 96.5 FM and 1080 AM WUFO, or you might be streaming us, live streaming us. So thank you for listening and welcome. My name is Francesca Messiah, Manager, Community Health Improvement, Kaleida Health, and I want to thank you for being part of our program. And I always say, and I mean it with my sincerely, when I see you in the community and when you tap me on the shoulder and say, I heard the radio program, what's the first thing I always ask? And no one rarely has people rarely have an answer, but I'm going to continue to ask you, is there a topic that we've not covered that you would like to hear? At Kaleida Health, not only are we Western New York's largest employer with over 13,000 employees, probably close to 20,000, because we're Kaleida Health and we're general physicians, and we're the hospitals. So when you mention a topic, I feel we have everybody right here for that topic you haven't heard yet. Kaleida Health, we're Buffalo General Hospital, Gates Vascular Institute, Galisano Children's Hospital, Millard Fillmore Suburban, Visiting Nursing Association, which makes home visits throughout 7 days a week, all ages. We have High Point at Michigan, long-term care in Buffalo. We also have a long-term healthcare site in Niagara County. We have a hospital in Olean, and I believe Chaffee, New York. And like I said before, we're part of general physicians, which are not only your primary care physicians, they're also many of our specialty clinics throughout north of the city, south of the city, in the city of Buffalo. And we have specialty clinics, as this is, as I just said, we have specialty clinics for Kaleida Health and general physician located throughout. And our topic for today, our guest, I am so happy to welcome her back. And that's Julie Sosa. Dr. Sosa, how are you?
I'm well, Fran. Good to see you again.
Oh, you as well. And Dr. Sosa is a medical director at Galisano Children's Hospital, the OBGYN centers at Kensington and Niagara Street. And she is also a minimally invasive gynecological surgeon. She's a surgeon, y'all. So I always have to brag on that because that I can't even imagine what the training that Dr. Sosa has been through, other than I know it has been fabulous training. And our topic for today, and I have to say, I've received three emails already today about the topic. The topic today is menopause and the Buffalo woman. We have talked about menopause, premenopause. We've talked about with Dr. Sosa. We've also talked about fibroids with Dr. Sosa. But what makes this conversation, this interview today different? It's about a speaker that we have from out of town coming. Her name is Dr. Kemi Dow, Dr. Dow. But where is Dr. Dow from, Dr. Sosa?
Dr. Dahl is a gynecologic oncologist, surgeon, researcher, scientist from the University of Washington. So she's
Okay.
coming all the way from the Pacific Northwest.
Yes, and the weather could, well, you know what? It'll probably be a similar weather pattern as we have in Buffalo.
At least this time of year, yeah.
At least this.
Rain, cold, gray skies.
Yeah. So before we really get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation, where we will be talking about an upcoming event May 15th at the Museum of Science right here in Buffalo, and that's Friday, May 15th, from 5 until 7 p.m. with Dr. Dow. But there's a whole host of organizations within Buffalo that are making it possible for Dr. Dow. But
Yes.
I want to, Dr. Sosa, let's first, I'm always about educate. Let's first take a step back before we talk about May 15th with Dr. Dow. And what is menopause? Why, what is it for those listeners who really aren't sure? We always hear the term, but do we really know what it means?
Yeah, good question, Fran, because it's often misused. So, menopause is really a thing you could only diagnose after it happens. Essentially, it is 1 year after your last period. And so, in that time frame in which you no longer have periods, you're probably in menopause, but we can't diagnose it until it's been a full 12 months since the last one. And once that 1 year has happened, you're considered postmenopause. So it's a little confusing. It's like a little bell curve. So just before, you'll have perimenopause where you may have symptoms like hot flashes, you may have skipped periods, you may notice mood changes. But as long as you're still having a period, you're in perimenopause. And then you realize, oh, it's been 3 months since my last one. It's been 6 months. Finally, it's been a year. Then you're like, okay, I just went through menopause. And now I am post menopause more than a year later without having any periods. Now, the other symptoms may still continue. You may still have hot flashes, the mood changes, and whatnot. But menopause is defined by the lack of a period.
Yeah, thank you. And you know what? So you've been talking about menopause, and we had a speaker this past recently at Delavan Grider Community Center, a member of your team, Dr. Johnson,
Mm.
talking about more addressing a younger audience. Although the parents and the aunties were there with the younger people, talking about talking about menstruation and complications because again again we can discuss that another time, but there are complications that come with menstruation. But why do you feel menopause has not really it really hasn't been discussed?
I think in general, women's health has not gotten its fair share of research, of awareness in the media. And menopause is just one of those things that falls under the general label of women's health. And because some people associate shame, because now this means, I definitely can no longer have children, that we as women don't share our experiences with others. But then in the culture in healthcare, we felt, oh, this is just kind of a natural thing that happens. And so you go through it and move on with your life. Thankfully, there have been those who realize that there's so many symptoms and changes that occur with the hormonal transition of menopause that can affect our brains or hearts or bone health, muscle mass, weight. It would explain why people have mood changes. That lately we've seen that uptick in studying women's health overall, but finally realizing that there are a lot of changes that can affect our health or well-being and quality of life with menopause. And it's time that we start talking about it, make sure that everyone is well informed, and really push and advocate for scientists and researchers to do more work in this field so we know what we can do about it.
And as I always say to our listeners, I'm always throwing education in there. And Dr. Sosa just mentioned two things. She said, number one, advocate. That could be a more of a legal. And she said research. So for the younger listeners who, not younger, well, younger listeners who may be thinking about college and say, I want to go into healthcare, but I don't want to necessarily become a nurse, a doctor, a physician assistant. Medical research is huge.
Yes,
And,
yes,
and
yes.
so that is a career track. And I always like to point out at least one or two career tracks throughout the show. And we talk about menopause. Okay. So obviously, listeners, there's no problem when with the commercials that we see on erectile dysfunction, the blue pill. And obviously, there is no shame in talking about menopause. You no need to quietly grab your handkerchief or something. It's okay. And that's all what we are. One of the things we're trying to let women know, women's health, it's okay. So what's the average age for menopause?
The average age is 51. In the African American community, it could be around 49.
Hmm. And why is it younger? in African American communities?
Good question. We don't really know why. The theory is that because of historical stress of enduring slavery, the Jim Crow era, and um, sort of systemic racism that has really stressed the the genes and chromosomes of Black individuals in the United States, that or genes then mutate, and the
Yeah.
stress of those genes cause them to age quicker. So as a result, we may experience certain conditions earlier, more frequently. We may be more predisposed to certain heart conditions as a result of this.
Hmm. Okay, thank you. Well, let's move on to May 15th with Dr. Dow, Kemi Dow. Am I pronouncing her first name correctly?
Yeah, yeah, doll.
Mhm. And what will her presentation cover? And I have to mention that the moderator for the program is our own Buffalo Common Council Majority Leader, Leah Holton Pope. And I know that, I mean, I know Leah is an excellent commentator. So back to Dr. Dow. What will her presentation cover?
Yeah, we're so excited to have these two powerful women lead this conversation. Dr. Dahl has long been a person who has realized, she's one of those scientists who has realized that women's health, reproductive health, aka the health of the womb, has been neglected. And so she dedicates her own work to uterine cancer and to women after childbirth. And her book was just released on May 5th. So Buffalo will be one of the first cities being exposed to this book and what she's written. Her work really focuses on that hidden crisis of the Black womb. And she, through stories of her patients, her own stories, family members, then offers a pathway forward towards healing, recovery, how one could advocate for themselves, and how one could truly thrive in life post childbirth from 35 years onward.
And just a couple of things you just said. Woman scientist. Now you rarely even hear that combination,
Mhm.
and it's not on TV. And the other thing, advocate for yourself. We could do a whole program on advocating for yourself and your health care. But did did you say the hidden crisis of the Black womb? Is that
Yes.
something? What does that mean?
Again, if you look at, if you love history like I do, you will realize how much women have been neglected. And when you look at race, Black women even more so. And these gynecologic conditions that cause us to suffer, whether it's heavy periods, whether it's painful periods, whether it's the symptoms of menopause that we just push through and deal with, those things are either ignored when a patient goes to their doctor and they say, you know what, I'm experiencing hot flashes, I can't sleep. And the doctor says, oh, that's just menopause, and you move on. And she's realizing how much we take on and just we continue to provide for families, we continue to go to work, and we suffer through this unnecessarily. And her work is really this wake up call, too, not just to those who live it, because they know, but to us as medical professionals, to us as legislators, elected officials, that we really need to, as systems, come together and one, acknowledge that we've been neglecting the care of women. Two, develop a plan to take action. And that's essentially what her work is about.
And I just want to say, not only physicians, but neglecting the care of women is neglecting the care of ourselves. And
Yep,
it's neglecting the care of our sisters and our mothers. You
exactly.
know, it's a simple, and I'm just going to throw it out there in terms of neglecting our care. I'm just going to go off topic for a second. Foot health. Sometimes women will say the shoes are killing my feet. And the other women will say, "Oh, honey, just have it. You don't have to walk. You are you're ruining parts of your body called your feet."
Hmm.
because you're stuffing these, these shoes that aren't necessarily meant for your foot. But in terms of, oh my, we could do a whole show on women and neglecting, and coming together. I always like the positives, like coming together. Her book is called A Terrible Strength, which I think that's what has me so interested in
Right?
this. What is it? It sounds like good trouble. What is
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
what is a terrible strength? Because strength is normally something you see as very positive, but then as Black
Yeah,
women,
almost like an oxymoron, right?
it's an
Two
oxymoron.
opposite
But
words
then,
next to each other. Yeah,
right,
you're right.
and but then we hear this thing, oh, the angry Black woman. So what is a terrible strength?
It's that thing where the strong Black woman, the strong woman, the woman who pushes through no matter what, the woman who still handles business despite suffering, the woman who suffers in silence and is still leading her organization, leading her community, leading her family. And that in general, when someone is has strength, that's a compliment, right? We look up to them, we pat them on the back and say, "Oh, you're so strong, that's amazing." And Dr. Dahl says, no, it's not. It's actually terrible. Being being forced to be seen as strong, no matter what, is harming us. Is harming us as individuals. Is harming us as a community. And we need to stop commending people for being strong through suffering. And instead, we need to address the suffering so that people don't have to suffer.
You know what? Now we're touching into mental health and
Hmm.
behavioral health.
Hmm. It's all
Um,
connected.
it's all connected. What are some of your takeaways? Because I'm assuming that you have read her book, or
I am in the process. I just got mine 2 days ago.
oh, so what do you think, without giving her speech away, what are some of the takeaways that you have acquired from reading the book?
I think when women read it, their eyes will be open to the fact that they're not alone. When you read these stories, I think it's really easy to feel isolated when you're experiencing something, to think, I'm the only one. And then you read this book and you realize this is pervasive. And the benefit of that, again, is realizing it's not my fault. It's not something that I did or I myself can undo. It's a systemic failure. And as a result, we as systems, for you and I in healthcare, we as a healthcare system need to do better for our community, or departments of health or policymakers, that we all have to do better by women in order to change the quality of life and care that they experience.
And you know what? And it's funny you say you're not alone. It's not my fault. I figure it sounds like, okay, we can just drop the mic and go on. That is a drop the mic moment. Why should women come to this event?
Oh my goodness. I am so excited. You don't understand. As you know, we know each other personally outside of this.
Yes.
And I will talk women's health all day, every day. And this really came from listening to our patients. In the clinic, this is when I talk to patients and they express their concerns. Women want to learn more about their health as they get older. They want to learn more about things outside of childbirth. And they don't get enough attention in their 15-minute visit. We need to take healthcare outside of the clinic and into the community. And this conversation is going to be deep. Dr. Dahl is engaging. Leah Halton Pope, as you said, is such a great conversationalist, and she will drive such important questions. But then to be in a room filled with women who, again, you see you're not alone, who may share their experiences, who may even provide solutions for all of us. This is just the beginning. It's not going to be a one and done. We do this and then you don't hear from us. This collaborative between Collider Health, the Erie County Department of Health, the Erie County Commission on the Status of Women,
Yes.
Roswell Park, UBMD, and our community partners, Second Chapter Books, who helped us get these books. This cross industry collaborative is what is needed. We alone can't do it as doctors. Lawyers can't do it alone in the justice system. We all have to come together and do it. And we have to do it with the very women who experience it. So as a woman, when you come, I'm just excited to have this conversation with you. We will be giving away the books for free. Dr. Daw will be doing book signings. And in that room, we will also have Collider physicians, UBMD physicians, Roswell Park physicians who you can meet and chat with. We need more cross pollination of the healthcare providers and patients. And this is our way to make that happen. And we are so excited to be doing this and to continue this work in our community.
Hmm. Yeah, Dr. Sophie, you are a gem for this our community and really bringing this the whole conversation of menopause, menstruation, and you hear the first three words are MEN, and there's nothing wrong with men, but sometimes, right, in the beginning, they were when it came to menopause, what were they? Sometimes they would give women brain surgery. I mean, it was just crazy.
Yeah, yeah. You're diagnosed with
Hys-
hysteria.
Hysteria,
Yeah, when you're probably
hysterectomy.
just experiencing menopause. Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah.
So, hopefully, and being a gynecologist, that is something, not a gynecologist, I meant to say an oncologist. And if you don't, an oncologist is a cancer surgeon.
Hmm.
And just for people to begin to understand all these terms and not be afraid to ask questions.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
on May 15th. Now tell me where May 15th, where is it going to be again and what time?
So 5 to 7:15, we're going to be serving food from 5 to 5:30, so you don't need to grab dinner. Just come on over after work at the Museum of Science, 1020 Humboldt Parkway, Friday, May 15th, 5 to 7:15 p.m. And come get your free books.
Yeah, if we now you may not there's not babies there won't be babysitting a babysitter, but can people are they free to bring their
Of
children?
course, of course. We can't possibly have an event made for women and not ensure that women are not left out because of childcare reasons. Absolutely bring your kids.
Hmm. And they are, welcome to have food as
Yes.
well. If anyone has a question, is there an email or a phone number that they can call if they have, let's say they're sharing this with someone and they forgot to write something down. Is there a phone number?
We don't have a direct phone number for the event, but if they needed to get in contact with me at the clinic, they can call 716-898-5000.
Say that one more time, please.
716-898-5000.
And my favorite question when I have clinicians on, are you taking new patients?
Yes, I am.
I always have to ask that ask that question. What are some of the takeaways that you want our listeners to like what would be the top three or four things you would want to make sure our listeners pay attention to during this conversation?
That's a good one. Pay attention. I think perhaps come with maybe the one thing that bugs you, the one question that you have about whether it's your personal symptoms, your experience in menopause, perimenopause, or just your reproductive health after childbearing. So we have the opportunity to ask questions at the end of the event. Then bring a pen because I'm sure there's going to be opportunity for lots of notes, and you'll want to be writing. So bring a pen to take notes and come prepared to engage with other women and share this, and let's build this community of women who prioritize women's health and make it a priority for our city.
Yeah, and I was gonna, and the first thing when I asked that question came to my mind, bring a friend or two.
Yeah.
It's
If there's
free.
somebody in your life, and you could bring men too, men are
You
not
can bring
excluded.
men.
Yeah.
I, I mean,
Bring
trust
someone
it.
in your life who you think will benefit from this conversation.
Yeah, yes, and I remember a few events ago when you spoke at First Shiloh. I think the first four or five people to ask questions were men.
Oh,
They were asking questions about their mother and menopause, their wives and menopause. So men are welcome. You
men
are.
indeed welcome.
Mm-hmm. Because I always feel the more we understand each other's health, again, the more it helps with our own communication.
You're absolutely right.
So you can ask your wife or your girlfriend or your mother, or your partner, right? Or your
Mhm.
partner, who might be experiencing some of these symptoms, especially as you're going to learn on May 15th at the Buffalo Museum of Science from Dr. Dow. You may say, she has that. Let me ask that at dinner or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we all want to be well and healthy. We have about 2 minutes left. Anything, what would you like to close with?
I am excited, extremely excited and grateful for our partners in this. This, again, is a collaborative between the county, multiple healthcare institutions, and community organizations, including the Office of Health Equity. Where again, this is not a one and done. We are doing events throughout the city. We are listening to women and we are trying to meet the needs of women's health beyond birth. So listen out for other things in the future and please come join us. Please be part of the conversation and part of the change.
And there is a beautiful flyer. If you need for me to email you that flyer, I'll give you my email address, FMESIAH, Messiah, at kaleidahealth.org. Messiah, one S in Messiah, at kaleidahealth.org. Dr. Sosa, we have run out of time, and I want to thank you for being our guest today. As we've discussed the upcoming program on menopause and the Buffalo women with our guest speaker, Dr. Kemi Dow from the University of Washington, May 15th, Museum of Science, 5 p.m. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you, Dr. Sosa.
Thank you so much, Fran.
And now on to part two. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to the Great Lakes Health Radio program on Power 96.5 FM, 1080 AM, or you might be listening to us through one of many streaming services. And I want to say welcome. My name is Francesca Messiah, Manager, Community Health Improvement at Kaleida Health. Thank you so much for joining us again. And you know what I'm really happy and proud is when you stop me in the community and say, I heard your show. Oh my gosh, that just put such a smile on my heart. And also, I will always ask you, is there a show you haven't heard that you would like for us to talk about? And today's show, as a matter of fact, we're going to be starting with talking about inflammation in foods. And I was speaking with someone the other day at Juan Phillips' retirement celebration, and they said they didn't know inflammation could cause food could cause things that not make you feel well in your body. But before I do that, and our guest for today is Kelly Cardamone, Dr. Kelly Cardamone, who is a manager of nutrition and diabetes here at Kaleida Health and General Physicians. How are you, Kelly?
I am doing well today. Thank you, Francesca, and happy to be here as always.
Oh, thank you. And you know what? And I didn't say who Kaleida. Kaleida, not only are we the hospitals, as I mentioned every week, every other week, Buffalo General, Gates Vascular Institute, Galisano Children's Hospital, Millard Fillmore Suburban, Visiting Nursing Association that offers 24-hour care, our two long-term care sites, that is DeGraff in North Tonawanda, as well as High Point on Michigan, and also we have many specialty clinics for men, women, children. Kaleida does not discriminate. So we even have programs for high school students, LGBTQ, and we see everybody, all races, religions, all sexes, nationalities. But what I didn't mention, one of our large outpatient clinic, our outpatient arm that has physician specialty clinics is General Physicians. And what made me think of that is when I was introducing our guest Kelly, who's with General Physicians, that is a primary care practice. Plus, they have specialty clinics, as Kelly is in one of the specialty clinics. nutrition. Is that what the clinic is called, Kelly?
Yes, it's our clinic is actually called the Clinical Nutrition and Diabetes Education Program.
Yeah. So thank you. And we have so much to talk about today. And if you've been following me for years, you know Kelly is not a stranger to our show because Kelly is a guru when it comes to nutrition. Not only is she a guru, she is trained and she just received her PhD in Kelly.
So I actually did my doctorate in clinical nutrition, and I focused on gastrointestinal disorders.
Yes, thank you. And today's topic, I guess we kind of took things a little out of order. Today's food is ultra processed food and foods that contribute towards inflammation in your body. And ultra processed food is a term, oh my gosh, it seems like to be on everybody's radar screen, everyone's talk show, as well as inflammation. So starting with that, Kelly, what are ultra processed food and why do they call it ultra processed food?
Sure. So ultra processed foods, and I will share, there is really no single definition used in all cases, as we'll call it, of ultra processed foods. But what we use is something called the NOVA classification system. And that is actually, there's not an acronym for anything, that's the name of it. And what it is they classify these foods according to um, uh, how much processing or how many things are added to these foods. So, ultra processed foods really are products with extra ingredients not typically used in home kitchens. And they'll often include like additives that enhance flavor, texture, or appearance. And the thing to remember is, as I said just a moment ago, there really is no single definition. And right now it's really evolving. And these not all of these ultra processed foods actually are bad. And the reason for that is that a lot of times they will increase shelf stability, maybe enhance flavor. And if you think about it, so you've got your unhealthy options, which would be, things that are high in sugar and salt and saturated fat. But there are also other items that would fall into that category of ultra processed. And those would be things like fortified cereals, whole grain breads, fruits and yogurts. So I think it's important that everybody, does understand that there's a whole classification system that is used, and we're still really learning on how to educate the public and approach that topic. I'll say of ultra processed foods.
And ultra processed foods, I guess when I even think, many ways I'm thinking about it, they're probably foods that are found in vending machines.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is it can be foods that are found in vending machines, but it's really a lot of the stuff that is shelf stable. So even if you're thinking about like canned fruits and vegetables, think about things like, believe it or not, tofu. If we take these foods according to this NOVA classification system, and it's basically based on their degree of processing from unprocessed to processed, as we'll call it, but things like soy milk, non-fat Greek yogurt. So you're going to have your healthy options and your unhealthy options. And if you look at what the information we have so far, believe it or not, ultra processed foods, according to this definition, contributes to more than half of the total caloric intake in the United States. What that means is half of the calories that, as the United States as a whole, that we take in are from these ultra processed foods. And I think it's really important to highlight, which we will get to, what are the things you want to look for that are the unhealthy aspects of ultra processed foods, right? Because really, avoiding them it's not really realistic right now or necessary, but it's really diving into that food label to really identify, because we do know that some of these ultra processed foods and ingredients can actually increase the risk of obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease. But those are the foods that are high in added sugars, saturated fats, and sodium.
So food labels. I remember years ago someone saying if you can't pronounce or don't know what the first three ingredients are on a label, Is that maybe a hint if your food is ultra processed, if it has all of these names you've never heard of on a food label?
So I think it's, as I was sharing, it's this classification system looks at how the process, like how the food is manufactured or produced. And as I share things like non-fat Greek yogurt, right? Like that's actually pretty healthy. And so I think that's why right now, even our Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, they're really not supporting this. Like, let's put UPF on food products because, for instance, non-fat Greek yogurt is a much better option than someone wanting to go and have, ice cream bars and whatever else. And I think it's teaching individuals to, yes, look at the ingredients first and foremost. You want ingredients that you can pronounce is probably one of them is really important. You want to look at the first few ingredients. Is it something like sugar or some form of sugar? But you really want to, and I know we've talked about this before on other shows as well, you want to look at that nutrition facts panel and you want to look at, hey, what are the added sugars? How much sodium's in here? How much saturated fat is in this product? And that, to me, that will guide somebody's decisions quite a bit more. And as I'm sure everybody's heard many times, it's shopping the perimeter of the store. So
Hmm.
things like your fruits, your vegetables, your lean proteins, the produce section, that actually will take out a majority of the ultra processed foods because they're things that are not going to be packaged and on the shelf. But a lot of times, if you think about it, people need those foods for convenience and depending on the situation that they're in, with regards
Sure.
to storage and so forth.
Now, this is the next question. Listeners, get a pen or pencil or turn on your computer because the next set of questions are things we can actually write down. You talk about labels, sugar. How many grams of sugar? Let's say, I don't know, a man is 200 pounds, a woman is 180 pounds, 150 pounds. How much sugar, or doesn't weight have anything to do with it? How much sugar should we have? And an added sugar, like sometimes they'll say 3 grams of sugar and 8 grams of added sugar, or alcohol sugar. How many grams of sugar is like recommended to have?
So the thing is, if you're looking at, and you're right, it depends on like caloric intake of someone. Meaning that someone that's eating 1,500 calories versus somebody that's eating 2,500 calories, the amount of that it's going to be different, right? Right now, based on a 2,000 calorie diet, which if you look at a nutrition facts panel, and if you look all the way over to the far right, you'll see something that says percent daily value.
Right.
And yeah, and most people are like, what does that even mean? And if you actually, look a little bit further down on that label, at the very bottom, it says it's the percent daily value for somebody consuming 2,000 calories. And that is kind of what they think, generally speaking, most people need. I will tell you, I do not agree with that because a majority of the population is overweight and obese, and 2,000 calories, is too much. But if you are looking at an individual, how many teaspoons of sugar? So technically, it was originally recommended about 12 teaspoons per day for a 2,000 calorie diet. 12 teaspoons equates to about 48 grams of sugar. Now, if you look at other health organizations, they really do recommend, instead of that, is that for women, we should keep it to about 6 teaspoons a day, and men should keep it to about 9 teaspoons. So that would be about 24 grams for women and about 36 grams for men. Now, I know I just stated all that, but here's the thing. Unless you're using an app and you are tracking your food intake, you're really not going to necessarily keep track of the amount of sugar. And so the rule I came up with that I think people I work with and clients have found easy to guide them is I really say to look per serving on an item, keep it in single digits. So even looking at the added sugar versus natural sugar, just say total sugars, keep it under 10 grams per serving if you can. And it's a really easy trick and tool that patients have found useful and to guide them regardless of food budget. Because that's the other thing is that a lot of times these foods that have more sugar are going to be less expensive. So I will step back and also explain when you look at a label and it says total sugars and added sugars.
Right.
Total sugars is the umbrella term, and that includes sugars that are naturally in a food. And think about your fruits, milk, things like that. They naturally have sugar in them. Under that, you'll see added sugar, and that means how much extra sugar they put in. And that could be in the form of, believe it or not, things like honey. It could be cane syrup or sugar. It could be fructose. So the example would be if something says 20 grams of total sugar, so total sugars is 20 grams, and underneath it says 10 grams of added sugars. That means that out of the 20 grams of sugar, 10 were added in, they didn't occur naturally, and then 10 were actually, those were naturally occurring in that food or that product. And hopefully that makes sense.
It,
Yeah.
mhm. And you know what? We may have to just do a show on sugars because I'm sure some people right now are saying, I mean, things like I know people like to add sugar sometimes to greens. Sometimes people like to add sugar to grits or sugar to oatmeal or sugar to, of course, to sweet potatoes or sweet potato pie. Or so I know, I mean, sugar is it's not great for us. So if somebody may want to say, okay, I need to talk to this lady or one of her staff, who would what number would they call?
So the number for my staff, all of us dietitians, is 716-748-4000. So 716-748-4000. And that's great. Utilize the dietitians. That is what we are here for. But you are right that sugar's not great. Yes, it enhances flavor and it does all of those things. But as a country, we are over consuming sugar because it tastes good. And when you make things, if you have your oatmeal, think about it. Do you really need sugar in there? Perhaps add some fruit instead. That would be a natural sugar that would also have some fiber in there and some other nutritional benefits. So do that to sweeten it instead of pulling out the table sugar and sprinkling it on things.
Mm-hmm. Now, um, and again, I know I could go on and on, but I want to stay on script. So now that leads into the conversation of inflammation. Does sugar cause inflammation?
Yeah. So I should say that's a loaded question. It can, and it depends on the individual. And I know there's been a lot of attention around, with these ultra processed foods we just talked about. And quite honestly, part of the ultra processed foods is sugar. It's the sugar, the salt, and the saturated fat. Those are kind of those bad things in there, or those unhealthy things. I'll step back and say there really is no such thing as a general, what we say, anti-inflammatory diet, because inflammation is not necessarily a bad thing, right? You cut your hand, you actually want that inflammatory process to happen, right? So you have healing. It's really, unfortunately, we call something. There's another kind of inflammation that's called systemic inflammation, and that is whole body inflammation. And that's where the diet has gained more attention, like eating the things that are high in sugar, high in saturated fat, in sodium, that those things are contributing to this systemic inflammation. But I also want to step on the side, Fran, and remind everybody that it's also the foods that you're not eating in your diet, where people are not eating enough fruits and vegetables, and that kind of sugar is healthy sugar, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sugar in the diet really, yes, it can increase systemic inflammation, as we'll call it. And especially if you have diabetes or pre-diabetes, because it raises your blood glucose levels, your blood sugar levels.
For my friend that I ran into a couple weeks ago who didn't know what inflammation is, what is inflammation?
Well, it's if you want to put it very simply, it would be a cascade of events, I should say, that are within the body. I don't want to say that are not ideal. Most people, if you are feeling inflammation from your diet, it's not like you're going to feel swollen. Like I just said, like if you cut your hand and you might see some redness and swelling around it, that
Yes.
inflammation is different. This is the inflammation that can actually, over time, can impact your joints, the cardiovascular system, the organs and the health of the organs. And it's something that is usually chronic or cumulative, I should say, throughout the years. What I mean by that is if you're a healthy eater and all of a sudden you have a big piece of cheesecake, you don't necessarily have to worry that it's going to cause, I shouldn't say worry, but long term damage, if that makes sense. It's the individuals that are just unhealthy that over time you're going to have that cascade of inflammatory responses in the body. And then, as I shared, has that trickle down effect.
Or I would say, like, when I look at inflammation sometimes, I remember doing, when I was, I guess, early in my career here at Kalita, attending health fairs in the summer, where somebody would eat a hot dog and then they'd go have their blood pressure taken, and their blood pressure was through the roof. And I didn't even know anything and really think about nutrition that much. But can something like eating a regular, let's say eating a long hot dog, can that cause like inflammation or your blood pressure to go up?
Yeah, how about this? So there's a couple things that would cause the increase in blood pressure. One, from that hot dog, very high in sodium. And that would probably be one of the biggest causes of that increase in blood pressure would be the sodium that's in there. But things like processed meats and sausages and things like that and hot dogs, not to get too technical, but they are high in saturated fats, and they have something that is also called advanced glycation end products. They're called AGEs. And those are things that can actually also trigger an inflammatory response in the body. So there's a couple things that could be going on there.
Hmm. Okay. So in terms of what are some, I'm all about prevention. So you've talked about sugar and salt and inflammation. What are some things that we can do to, live healthier, feel better, reduce inflammation? What are some tips?
Yeah. So the first thing is, and I'm going to pull back to our sugar conversation, and
Okay.
this will be bringing in those ultra processed foods, as we call them, not as healthy. Do away with sugary drinks. Like honestly, like do, do not drink sugary beverages. And that is a big problem for a lot of individuals. And we see a lot of kids that are drinking these sugary drinks. And juice is still better than drinking soda pop and Kool-Aid and all that stuff. But, if you have the choice and it's within your budget and it's juice versus fruit, that fruit is going to be better because it's going to have more fiber in it, which is more beneficial. But taking out the sugary drinks. So don't, even when you go and get your coffee drinks, don't do all the sugary coffee drinks. Candies, desserts, those are kind of the main source of sugar in our diet. Think about you want to do less refined carbohydrates. So things like white bread, white pasta, white crackers. So avoiding, as they say, those white foods, white rice. Choose more whole grain products that are going to have more fiber in them. Whole grain breads, oatmeal, those kinds of foods are going to be more beneficial. You also want to avoid those trans fats and processed, oils, but things that are found in fried foods and fast foods, a lot of baked goods and things that are packaged in cupcakes and cookies and donuts. Those things are going to have sugar, but they're also going to have that high saturated fat. And then, as I had just mentioned, if we're trying to reduce that inflammation, you also want to kind of reduce things like sausages and bacon, those processed and red meats. So you want to really then start to make sure you're adding in, as I said earlier, fruits and vegetables. And that is where we don't get enough. Nobody does, unfortunately. We say 5 to 7 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. And, you want to try to cut back on some things, but you want to make sure you're also adding healthy foods in, and drink lots of water as well.
Oh, thank you. I was going to ask about drinking water. How about protein powder? If someone wants to make a smoothie using, let's say, almond milk and a half a banana, how is protein powder? Does because it's powder, does it really work?
Well, it is processed. So, as I said earlier, if you think about most of our foods are processed, some will be, you'll have vegetarian protein powders. The nice thing about that is they will add more fiber. They'll have more fiber in them. You can have whey protein powders. So, there's two approaches. I'm not anti protein powder by any means. One, protein powders help keep you full and satisfied. Two, it can also help to balance blood glucose levels. You should have protein with every meal. It is one of our most important macronutrients because the body can't make it. But there's a couple things you got to look at cost. Protein powder, shelf stable, and depending on the cost, might be pretty cost effective. But the other thing you can do for your smoothie is also, believe it or not, add tofu. I know people cringe when they hear tofu, but you can make a smoothie using tofu. You can also use Greek yogurt, so non-fat Greek yogurt, really high in protein. So that's another way you can get that protein in if you don't want to use powders. But I'm not anti-protein powder by any means. I like protein powder. It has its place.
Okay, and I didn't realize that the veggie protein powder has more fiber.
Yes, because they tend to be made, if you look at the ingredients, you might see things like hemp. They might have flaxseed in their chia seed, but a lot of times they use pea protein, and peas also have fiber. So a lot of times they'll be higher in fiber, which is nice.
Well, summertime, not even summertime, but children, what are we have 3 to 4 minutes left.
Sure.
And how about like that? Let's say, people always say, oh, that baby, oh, it's a cute little, round baby. At what point do you need to say, my baby is round, but my baby might be leaning towards overweight or obesity? Is there such a thing?
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. Obesity rates among children is on the rise. Part of it is diet, as we just talked about. It's the things, the sugary beverages, the quick foods, and it's also decreased activity. That is where, regular visits to the pediatrician, they keep an eye on that. And part of it is, children also go, so you don't really want to put children on a diet, is because you want to have a healthy relationship with food. And you also want to make sure that, sometimes what we'll do is say, hey, maybe they've gained a little too much weight for their height right now. And so what we're going to do is, we'll watch the weight. You don't want necessarily for them to lose weight, but maybe we keep the weight stable as they maybe enter into a growth spurt. So a lot of times you'll see kids where they kind of, are a little more round and then they go through a growth spurt because they're still growing. You have to look at the genetic component of that. But, that's what we've got the pediatricians for, dietitians. We have somebody on our staff who actually is a certified specialist in pediatrics. So if we have children that have nutrition, excuse me, if you're looking at overweight, obesity, or underweight, that she specializes in that as well. And you want to make sure you have a healthy relationship with food. But if you see a child eating candy and cookies and drinking the soda pop and the Kool-Aid and too much juice, make water your primary beverage, and again, get those fruits and vegetables in and get them moving. Get them outside and moving.
Well, Kelly, on that note, I'm going to say thank you. And this conversation continues. It's not even a part one, part two, part three. It is a continuation of making sure that we are making the wisest nutritional decisions throughout the year. It's not a winter thing, summer thing. It is throughout the year for the rest of your life for all ages. So, Kelly Cardamone, Manager Nutrition and Diabetes at part of Kaleida Health, General Physicians, which is part of Kaleida Health. I want to thank you for being our guest this morning on the Great Lakes Health radio program. And I'm your host, Francesca Messiah, Manager Community Engagement. Bye-bye.